A widow finds out that her late husband's valuables have been sold. Her shock and despair form the basis of the story. Clara, a 67-year-old widow, sat by her living room window, holding a cup of tea. The sunlight played on the frame of a photograph of her late husband Jack on the table next to her. Little did she know that this day would change her life. Her old friend, Martha, called and began to tell her with a joyful tone that she had seen an interesting ad in the local newspaper. Rare coin collection for sale. Favorable price. These are Jack's coins, aren't they? Oh, Martha asked innocently. The cup in Clara's hand trembled and her heart skipped a beat. Clara hastily broke off the conversation and grabbed her phone. Her mind was racing. How could this be possible? The coin collection was part of Jack's life, his passion, and was supposed to stay in the family as a memento. She opened the newspaper Martha had mentioned and found the ad. Her eyes widened when she saw the familiar description of the coins and the contact number listed. She recognized the number as that of her son, Adam. "Adam, what's this ad?" Clara asked, unable to contain her anxiety. "Oh, Mom, I don't know what you're talking about," her son answered quickly. His voice sounded dry, almost distant. Clara felt her heart clench with pain. Why is he lying? She thought. Okay, Clara's hands were shaking as she opened the closet where Jack's belongings were kept. It was empty. Not a single box of coins, not a single antique watch that Jack had collected all his life. How could they do this? "Ah," she whispered, leaning against the door. Clara remembered how she had trusted her family until recently, especially Adam, whom she had always tried to help. But now, with every passing minute, her doubts were growing. Her eyes filled with tears. "This is impossible. My family could not do this to me," Clara convinced herself. But the facts were in front of her. Someone close to her had decided to sell Jack's estate. Sitting on the edge of the couch, Clara tried to find an explanation. Maybe it wasn't intentional. Maybe they needed the money. Her thoughts flitted between anger and searching for an excuse for the family. Clara dialed Adam's number again. This time he did not answer. That night, Clara could not sleep. She sat by the window, watching the stars, which always reminded her of Jack. What would he say if he were here? Oh! Her pain turned into determination. She knew she had to find out the truth, no matter how bitter it was. This shock was only the beginning of her journey. The next step was to find out who in her family had done this and why. Clara always remembered her husband Jack with warmth in her heart. He was her support during their 50 years of marriage, a man who gave her stability and love. His hobby, collecting antiques, was their shared passion. She often helped him find unique items at auctions, and together they dreamed that the collection would become part of their family's legacy. After Jack's death, Clara felt a huge emptiness. But she always thought that her family, her son Adam, daughter Lauren, and granddaughter Emma would support her. Adam, the eldest son, was Jack's pride. He was educated in business school and always seemed to be a practical person. Clara relied on him when it came to financial matters because she believed in his wisdom. Lately, however, she had noticed that Adam had become more withdrawn. He often avoided phone calls and found excuses not to come over. Clara justified this by saying that he was busy. He has his own family, his own worries, she thought, but deep down she was worried that their bond was weakening. Lauren, the youngest daughter, was Clara's emotional support, as she often came to her mother for tea and always listened to her stories about Jack. However, Lauren had her own problems. Her marriage was coming apart at the seams, and she often complained about the lack of money. "Mom, if we had a little more, I could start over," Lauren once said. Clara just nodded, but her heart was clenching. She didn't want Lauren to feel cornered, but she couldn't help herself, because most of their savings were frozen in inheritance values. Emma, the 19-year-old granddaughter, was the light in Clara's life. Her energy and dreams for the future gave her hope. She dreamed of going to a prestigious university and often talked about how she wanted to be independent. But even Emma sometimes expressed dissatisfaction. "Grandma, why do you need these old things? They only take up space. Nowadays, people value something new." Clara wasn't offended, but these words left an unpleasant aftertaste. Although Clara loved her family, she couldn't help but notice how their relationship had changed since Jack's death. Adam talked more about financial difficulties. Lauren was constantly reminding her of her needs, and Emma was distant, as if she was losing touch with her grandmother. Clara did not want to think that her family could betray her trust, or she believed that the love and support they had received over the years held them together. But reality began to tell her otherwise. Lately, Clara felt that something had changed. Her son and daughter began to talk more and more about money, inheritance, and the future. As their words sounded as if they no longer perceived inherited values as part of Jack's memory, but saw them as an opportunity to solve their problems. One day Lauren asked Mom, "Have you ever thought about selling Jack's collection?" Clara was embarrassed. "No, Lauren, it's not just stuff, it's his life." Clara didn't want to give in to the idea that her family might have done something terrible, but she also knew she had to keep her eyes open. These doubts became the starting point of her internal conflict, which was getting worse every day. Clara decided to start with her daughter. Lauren had always been outspoken, and Clara hoped she could shed some light on the situation. "Oh, Lauren, I noticed that some of Jack's collection is missing. Do you know what happened?" Clara asked, trying to remain calm. Lauren looked away. "Mom, you know we all go through hard times. I thought that these things, they hurt you more than they made you happy." "A hurt?" Clara raised her voice. "They're not just things, Lauren. They're your father's memories." Lauren fell silent, and Clara realized that her daughter was hiding something. The next step was to talk to Adam. He had always seemed reliable, but lately his behavior had been suspicious. Adam, I need to know if you know anything about the disappearance of things from your father's collection." Clara asked him bluntly. Adam sighed and answered, "Mom, you know it's hard for everyone right now. Perhaps one of us decided that it would be better to sell these things than to leave them gathering dust." "Some of us? You mean you knew about this?" Clara felt her heart clench. It's none of my business, Mom," Adam answered evasively and quickly changed the subject. Clara decided to talk to her granddaughter. Emma had always been outspoken and could accidentally blurt out, Emma, do you know who might have decided to sell Grandpa's things?" Clara asked cautiously. "Grandma, I heard Mom and Uncle talking about it. They said it was better for you," Emma replied. "Better for me?" Clara felt anger building in her chest. Yes, they said you would be less sad if these things were gone." Clara remembered that Jack often talked about his old friend Bill, who was also a collector. She decided to call him. "Bill, it's Clara. Have you heard anything about what happened to Jack's collection?" she asked. Clara, I didn't want to tell you this, but a few weeks ago your son approached me. He offered to sell some of the items in the collection. I refused because I knew it would upset you," Bill replied. Clara could barely hold back her tears. This was the proof she needed. Clara began to reconstruct the events. Her children had conspired to sell the collection without her consent, using the excuse that it was for the greater good. How could they do this? Clara thought. How could they disregard their father's memory like this? She remembered how every item in the collection had a story behind it. From the antique watch Jack had bought for their anniversary to the painting that hung in their first home. Clara knew she couldn't let this situation go unanswered. Her family had violated her trust, and she had to decide how to proceed. After talking to her children and a friend of her late husband, Clara realized that more to the sale than just a desire to ease her pain. She decided to find out the truth, even if it would destroy the remaining trust in the family. Clara recalled Lauren recently talking about rising utility bills and expensive home repairs. Adam had also hinted at problems with the business, but never spoke about it directly. Or were they afraid I would find out? Or did they just think my feelings weren't important? Clara thought, gathering her strength for another important step. Clara invited Lauren to tea, hoping to have a more frank conversation. "Lauren, I need to be honest. I know that you and Adam are involved in selling Jack's stuff. Tell me why." Clara spoke firmly, but without accusation. Lauren sighed, her eyes filling with tears. "Mom, it wasn't my idea. Adam convinced me that we needed the money. He said it was a temporary measure. Money. What happened? Adam, Clara asked, trying to stay calm. He has big debts because of his business. And we can barely cover the children's expenses. We didn't know how to tell you. Lauren looked down. The next day, Clara met with Adam. His demeanor was tense, but he couldn't hide the truth any longer. Mom, I know you're angry, but I just didn't see any other way out. Adam began. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you think you had the right to dispose of what was left of your father? Clara tried to hold back her tears. My business is failing. I took out a loan and then invested in a project that failed. I was afraid that if I told you, you wouldn't trust me anymore. And now you think I trust you, Clara replied bitterly. Clara realized that her children were not only struggling with financial problems, but were also paralyzed by fear of admitting it. They acted on the belief that Clara would not be able to understand or forgive them. They hid the truth because they were afraid of my reaction, she thought. But didn't they betray me even more by their silence? Clara did not expect another revelation to come from her granddaughter. Grandma, I heard my mom tell my dad that this was the last chance to save the house. They were afraid we would lose everything, Emma said, unconsciously adding a new layer to the picture. Save the house. And that was the reason to get rid of the things that meant my whole world to me. Clara realized that she was facing a difficult choice while talking to her children. Clara learned that Adam was struggling to cover his mortgage payments and Lauren was forced to look for additional work to support her family. We didn't want to worry you. You've been through enough since your father died, Adam said, and so you decided it was better to betray me. Clara replied, her voice hurt. Clara realized that her children were not acting out of cruelty, but out of fear and desperation. But this did not diminish her sense of betrayal. For a long time, Clara felt that something was wrong. But what she had heard from Lauren and Adam in earlier conversations confirmed her worst guesses. The family she had always considered her support was hiding an important truth. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? That your secrets would remain hidden? Clara asked, addressing the children with pain in her voice. Lauren looked down, and Adam looked tense, like a man who realizes that the time has come to tell everything. Adam, Mom, I know how this looks, Adam began, but we didn't mean to betray you. We just didn't know what else to do. Clara crossed her arms over her chest, trying not to explode with emotion. Tell me everything. Mucka, no excuses, no justifications. Adam sighed and starting, after the pandemic, the business became unprofitable. I took out a few loans hoping to fix the situation, but things only got worse. Clara felt her heart clench. She did not know that her son, who always seemed confident, was struggling with such problems. Lauren, seeing her mother's reaction, also decided to come clean. Mom, I knew Adam was in debt and I tried to help. But my savings are gone too. And the repairs in the house and the children's education. We couldn't afford it. And so you decided that the best way out was to sell your father's things, without asking me. Clara's voice trembled with anger. Lauren started to cry. We thought it would be the lesser of two evils. We didn't want to worry you. You've been through so much. And the conversation took on an even more emotional turn when her granddaughter Emma entered the room. Grandma, I heard my mom telling my dad that if they don't find the money, we might lose the house. Clara turned to Lauren and adding, lose the house. And you decided it was better to get rid of everything that was left of your father. Adam and Lauren looked devastated. They couldn't find the words to justify their actions. Mom, we thought you would understand if we explained, Adam said. Would I? You took away not just things from me, but memories that I cherished. You left me no choice, Clara replied, wiping away her tears. Adam admitted that his business had not only lost profitability, but was on the verge of bankruptcy. He was forced to close several stores, and his debts had risen to a critical level. Lauren added that their husband had also lost his job, and they were barely able to cover their mortgage payments. We wanted to protect you from that. We thought we could fix it," said Lauren. Clara realized that her children were acting out of desperation, but she couldn't just forgive the betrayal. You should have trusted me. Instead, you decided that your problems were more important than my feelings," she said. This was a turning point for the whole family. They could no longer hide the truth, but could they rebuild trust? Clara gathered everyone in the living room, where her late husband used to read the newspaper, and the family used to gather for holidays. This time the atmosphere was completely different. Tension hung in the air, like a heavy cloud before a storm. "I want to know everything. And right now," Clara began, trying to keep her voice steady, even though her emotions were boiling inside. Adam was shifting nervously from one foot to the other, and Lauren looked like she was about to cry. Mom, we didn't mean to hurt you," Adam said, avoiding her gaze. "I know we should have talked to you, but there was no time. You had plenty of time to sell the things I've been saving for decades," Clara exclaimed, and Adam sighed and adding, "I thought we'd solve this quickly and you wouldn't even know." Lauren, who had been silent before, suddenly spoke up. "Mom, I'm guilty too, but we just wanted to save our homes, our families. I know we had no right. You had no right. Lauren, you have no idea what it's like to lose someone you love and then see everything that reminds you of them disappear," Clara said, her voice trembling with anger and pain. Emma, Lauren's daughter, who had been sitting in silence, suddenly interjecting, "Grandma, I think you're exaggerating. It's only a thing." These words were the last straw. Clara turned sharply to her granddaughter. "Just things. Emma, these things are memories of your grandfather. Every book, every tool in his workshop was a part of his life. Or why didn't you talk to me? Why did you think you had the right to make such decisions for me?" Clara continued. Adam tried to answer, "Mom, we were afraid. We were afraid that you wouldn't understand." "Understand?" Clara asked indignantly. "You didn't even give me a chance. You deprived me of the right to choose." Lauren started to crig. "Mom, I know we messed up, but please understand that we didn't do it out of malice." At this point, Adam lowered his head and confessed it was my idea. Lauren was against it at first, but I convinced her. I thought it was a temporary solution." Clara looked at her son with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "Temporary? Do you know how many years I've been collecting these things? How many nights I spent in that workshop helping your father?" Clara could no longer keep her emotions under control. "Or do you think that your excuse will change everything? That I'll just forget?" Lauren looked up. "Mom, we want to make things right. We're willing to make amends." Make amends? You can't compensate me for the loss of my memories." "This is not about money. This is about trust," Clara said. After the tense conversation, Clara locked herself in her room. Her thoughts were confused and her heart was beating faster than usual. Images of her late husband flashed before her eyes, moments of their happy life and how she was left alone in her loss. On the table was his old pocket watch, the only thing she had managed to keep. Ate as she ran her finger over the metal, feeling the coldness and weight of time. "What would you have done, Joan? How would you react to this?" she whispered, as if addressing her husband. The next morning, Clara got ready and went to see the lawyer her old friend had recommended. In the small office, which smelled of old leather and coffee, she told him the whole story. You have the right to demand a refund or compensation," the lawyer said, "but it will be a long and difficult road. What if I don't want to sue? What if I just want them to realize what they did?" Clara asked, looking at her husband with despair. The lawyer just siding "In that case, it depends on your desire and their conscience." The same day, Clara met with her old friend Marta. They were sitting in a small cafe, drinking tea and talking about life. "You have to be strong, Clara. They had no right to do this to you," Marta said. "But this is my family. I'm afraid of losing them if I go to court," Clara replied. "Didn't you lose them when they sold your memories?" Martha asked, looking her in the eye. Clara was on her way home when she saw Adam and Lauren on the doorstep. They were holding boxes of things they had managed to return. "Mom, we can't fix everything, but we want to at least try," Adam said. Clara stood silently, watching them unpack. As she saw familiar books, an old picture frame, and a few of John's tools, but most of the things were gone. Clara realized that she had to make a choice. She could continue to fight, demand compensation, and maybe even break up with her family. Or she could try to forgive, even though it seemed almost impossible. "Mom, we know we hurt you, but we want to make it right if you give us a chance," Lauren said, tears in her eyes. Clara looked at her daughter and son, trying to understand whether their words were sincere. That night, Clara could not sleep for a long time. And as she remembered her husband, their life, and what he always said, family is the most important thing, but trust is its foundation. The next morning, she called Adam and Lauren to her room. Her voice was calm but firm. "I have decided that I will not go to court, but that does not mean I have forgiven you. You will have to earn my trust all over again." Adam and Lauren nodded silently. They knew that this was only the beginning of a long road to reconciliation. Clara realized that her life would never be the same, but she was ready for that. Her goal now was to find a way to regain her family's trust without losing herself. Clara was sitting on the veranda of her house, watching the sunset. Her thoughts were heavy, as they had been for the past few weeks. Suddenly, she noticed an old friend appear in the yard. Sandra, a neighbor with whom she had once been friends, but had lost touch over the years. "Clara, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry," Sandra said, sitting down next to her. Her words were unexpected but warm at the same time. Clara felt that this meeting was not accidental. Sandra had brought a box of old photographs with her. She knew how much her memories meant to Clara, and she wanted to help restore at least some of what she had lost. "Do you remember this trip? John was fishing all day, and we were laughing that he would come back empty-handed," Sandra recalled, showing the photo. Clara smiled. The memories were painful, but they reminded her that even in difficult times there is always something bright. Sandra offered Clara her help. "I know you are in a difficult situation right now. If you want, I can help you find a new beginning." "What do you mean?" Clara was surprised. "I know a lawyer who can help you deal with all these legal issues. And if you need me, I'm always here for you," Sandra replied. The lawyer Sandra was talking about was a young but very competent man named Michael. He listened to Clara's story with care and professionalism. "You have more rights than you realize, Ms. Oakua Clara," Michael said as he looked over the documents. His confidence gave Clara hope. She realized that she was not alone in her struggle. Thanks to Sandra and Michael's support, Clara began to feel that she could cope with all the difficulties. They worked together to gather the necessary evidence and prepare an action plan. "And I thought I had lost everything, but now I see that this is not the end," Clara said, looking at her new allies. Sandra's support reminded Clara that even in the darkest of times, there are those who are willing to lend a helping hand. Her life began to change, and she no longer felt so alone. The sun's rays were breaking through the curtains when Clara woke up with the feeling that today her life was turning a new page. Her decision had been made, but now it was time to act. As she went to the mirror and saw not only fatigue, but also determination. "This is my chance to start again," she told herself. Clara packed a box with old things that reminded her of the past, as she decided to keep only those items that brought her joy and donate the rest to charity. John always said that things are just things. The important memories stay with us, she said as she closed the box. Yet this step was difficult, but at the same time it freed her from the burden of the past. Clara invited her family to dinner. It was a bold move, as their relationship was still strained, but she wanted to give them another chance. "I want us to talk openly, without accusations," she began. The family looked confused, but Clara insisted on being honest. During the conversation, Clara said that she had decided to sell her house and move to another city. "I thought about it for a long time, and now I want to start from scratch. This does not mean that I am leaving you, but I need a new start," she explained. This decision took everyone by surprise, but Clara was confident in her words. Before she left, Clara decided to establish relationships with her neighbors and friends. She felt that she had the support of more people than she could have ever imagined. "And we will always be there for you, Clara." Don't forget that," Sandra said as she hugged her. These words gave Clara the strength to move on. Clara moved to a small house on the coast. She began to do what she had always dreamed of, writing a memoir about her life. My past was hard, but it made me strong. Now I want to share my story to help others," she said, opening her new notebook. The ending of the story left many questions. Will Clara be able to rebuild her relationship with her family? Will she find true peace in her new life? Leave a comment and subscribe to read more stories that inspire and make you think.